Selamat pagi semuanya, dan terima kasih sudah hadir hari ini. Saya sangat senang bisa berbagi dengan kalian tentang sebuah topik yang menarik dan penuh misteri. Judul presentasi kita hari ini adalah teka-teki kosmik Al-Quran, mengangkat hubungan numerik dan spiritual. Di sini, kita akan menjelajahi bagaimana angka-angka dalam Al-Quran bisa mengandung makna mendalam, baik dari segi numerik maupun spiritual. Kita akan melihat beberapa contoh dan pola yang menakjubkan, serta mencoba memahami pesan tersembunyi di balik angka-angka tersebut. Jadi, mari kita mulai perjalanan ini dan temukan keajaiban yang tersembunyi dalam kitab suci kita. Now moving on to slide 2, which is our theory statement. Here, we'll lay the foundation for the concepts we're exploring. This slide is crucial because it clearly articulates the core theory that underpins the entire presentation. It serves as a roadmap, guiding us through the more detailed components later on. As we go through this, I'll highlight how this theory connects to the patterns and applications we'll discuss in subsequent slides. Essentially, this is about setting the stage so we all understand the fundamental principle that drives the rest of our analysis. In this slide, I want to introduce you to the core idea behind the theory of numeric and spiritual architecture of the Quran. Essentially, it suggests that the Quran is much more than just words on a page. It's a multi-dimensional system. It contains hidden numeric patterns, symbolic meanings, and spiritual structures that connect the literal text with the cosmic and human realms. This theory is built around 6 key concepts drawn from various source texts. First, the number 7, often called the cosmic red thread, serves as a fundamental link, uniting the macrocosm, like the 7 heavens, with the microcosm, such as the 7 Tawaf or the 7 verses of Al-Fatiha. Next, the repetition of Al-Fatiha symbolizes a spiritual cycle, emphasizing its ongoing significance in our spiritual journey. Then, we have the number 126 multiplied by itself. That's 126 times 126, representing what's called the square of loss, a symbol of spiritual or worldly challenges. Another key point is 1587, which is seen as a mathematical fingerprint, a unique code embedded within the Quran that can be explored through numerology. The golden triangle of faith points to a sacred geometric pattern that underpins the concept of belief itself. And finally, Surah 115 is viewed as a latent wave, hinting at deeper, hidden meanings waiting to be uncovered. What's fascinating here is that this theory suggests the Quran communicates not just through intellectual calculation, but also through physical touch and heartfelt spiritual reflection. It's a holistic approach, integrating classical interpretations, hadith, Sufi insights, and modern numerology. All of these elements work together to deepen our relationship with the Quran, highlighting how it can be approached as a divine, multi-layered system that bridges the seen and unseen, the physical and spiritual. On this slide, I want to share our main hypothesis, which is that the Quran contains an intentional numeric and symbolic architecture. Specifically, we believe that the number 7, and in particular 777, acts as a cosmic red thread. This thread connects both the macrocosm and microcosm, creating a living system within the text that invites us to engage through calculation, touch, and spiritual reflection. We also propose that there are 5 other key numbers or symbols that work together with 7 to form this intricate system. Together, they encourage us to explore the Quran not just intellectually, but in a deeply reflective and spiritual way. Now, looking at some sub-hypotheses, one key idea is that the number 7, especially in the form 777, is a symbolic code. It unites several important aspects: the 7 heavens, the 7 Tawaf around the Kaaba, and the 7 verses of Al-Fatiha. These are fundamental elements in Islamic spirituality and practice, and their connection through this symbolic number hints at a deeper, interconnected architecture. Another interesting point is the number 1587, which appears as a numeric marker in the Medinan Mushaf. This suggests a deliberate pattern or code embedded within the text, pointing to a sophisticated system of numeric symbolism. So, what's the purpose of all this? Our goal with this theory is to explain how these numeric and symbolic patterns, especially the number 7, can deepen the worship experience. They do so while remaining rooted in traditional sources, but also encouraging us to explore the Quran with modern methods of calculation and reflection. Additionally, we see that the repetition of Al-Fatiha creates a cycle of spiritual renewal, each recitation reinforcing a cycle of connection and renewal. There's also a geometric element, the golden triangle, which links Prophet Muhammad, Al-Fatiha, and the Quran, symbolizing harmony and divine connection. We also interpret the number 126 multiplied by itself, 126 times 126, resulting in 15,876, as representing both loss and the totality of the Quran, highlighting its completeness and the profound significance of its structure. Finally, the Quran, as the 115th surah, offers us an endless depth of meaning, reminding us that its message is infinite and open to ongoing discovery. All these elements together support our overall theme, that the Quran's architecture is not arbitrary, but intentionally designed to deepen our spiritual journey through numeric and symbolic patterns. Let's delve into the theoretical foundations that underpin our understanding of the 7 heavens and related concepts. Starting with the Islamic tradition, classical tafsir works like those of Ibn Kathir, Al-Tabari, and Al-Jalalain offer textual bases for these ideas. They help us interpret the Quran and Hadith in a way that supports these celestial concepts, such as the 7 heavens and rituals like Tawaf. Speaking of Hadith, sources like Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim are crucial because they validate the rituals and prayer obligations that are central to Islamic practice. Moving on to Sufi perspectives, thinkers like Al-Ghazali and Ibn Arabi see the Quran as a layered text. They believe it contains deeper, often symbolic meanings, including numerical symbolism, which adds a rich, mystical dimension to our understanding. This approach suggests that the Quran is not just literal, but also supports hidden or latent meanings that can be uncovered through spiritual insight. Finally, let's consider modern interpretations. Some, like Harun Yahya, emphasize the miraculous aspects of numerics in the Quran, framing them as evidence of divine intervention, what we might call apologetics. On the other hand, modern numerology, such as the work of Rashid Khalifa, introduces controversial ideas that require rigorous validation. It's important to approach these with caution to prevent confirmation bias and ensure our interpretations remain grounded in solid evidence. All of these perspectives, classical, mystical, and modern, connect back to our overall theme of exploring the deeper layers and interpretations of Islamic teachings. They show how our understanding continues to evolve, blending tradition with contemporary insights. Now, let's explore the 7th key component, the cosmic red thread, represented by the number 777. This concept is rooted in the idea that the number 7, especially in its triple form, acts as a kind of numeric takbir, a powerful symbol that links the macrocosm with the microcosm. Imagine it as a divine thread that connects the 7 heavens above with the 7 rounds of Tawaf and the 7 verses of Al-Fatiha below. Visually, this is often depicted as a 7-pointed star, which you might recognize from Islamic art, symbolizing this intricate connection. When we look at the macrocosm, the 7 heavens are mentioned in the Quran, specifically in Surah Al-Mulk and Surah Al-Isra. These references highlight the divine perfection embedded in creation. From the microcosmic perspective, we see the significance of the number 7 in daily worship, 7 rounds of Tawaf during Hajj or Umrah, as confirmed in Hadith, and the 7 verses of Al-Fatiha, which are essential in our prayers. These elements reflect a divine completeness, a perfect cycle. The symbolism of 7 is deeply rooted in Semitic tradition, representing fullness and perfection, like the 7 gates of hell mentioned in Surah Al-Hayr. While the specific number 777, as a modern interpretation, is not explicitly found in classical tafsir, the visual of a 7-pointed star aligns beautifully with Islamic artistic expression, emphasizing harmony and divine order. This relationship between the seven heavens, Tawaf, and Al-Fatiha is supported by authentic texts, reinforcing the idea that these elements are interconnected in a meaningful way. The number 777, therefore, can be seen as a modern reflection of this ancient harmony, inviting us to contemplate the divine unity that underpins all creation. Ultimately, this concept of the cosmic red thread is about recognizing cosmic ritual spiritual harmony. It encourages us to reflect on how divine and human realms are intertwined through these symbolic numbers, deepening our worship and understanding. By contemplating 7 as a cosmic key, we open ourselves to a greater awareness of divine order and unity in our spiritual journey. Let's explore the spiritual loop of Al-Fatiha. At its core, this is about the repetition of Al-Fatiha, also known as Az-Zabul Matsani, which creates a spiritual cycle. Think of it as a golden circular arrow. This visual symbolizes how this repetition keeps turning, renewing itself continuously. Now, why is this repetition so significant? Well, it's supported by scripture and tradition. For example, Surah Al-Hayr mentions that Al-Fatiha is 7 verses often repeated, emphasizing its recurring nature in our spiritual practice. Additionally, in our daily prayers, reciting Al-Fatiha is mandatory, as stated in Sahih Bukhari. Repetition isn't just about rote memorization, it's also a form of dhikr, which involves repeating God's names and attributes, deepening our connection. The metaphor of the circular arrow reflects a deeper Sufi concept, spiritual spirals, where each cycle of repetition brings us closer to divine understanding. This process acts as a renewal, connecting the microcosm of our prayer life with the broader meaning of the Quran. So, the key takeaway here is that repeating Al-Fatiha with awareness is more than just a ritual. It's a dynamic process of spiritual renewal. It helps us stay connected, mindful, and continually refreshed in our faith journey. Let's explore the significance of the number 126 and its square. The number 126, which comes from 133-7, symbolizes loss in this context. This is connected to the last verse of Al-Fatiha, which notably does not include the word Allah. When we square 126, we get 15,876, a number I like to think of as a grand square that reflects the totality of the Quran. Now, how do we verify this? One way is through gematria, where the word Saba, meaning 7, adds up to 133 based on the values of its letters. If we subtract 7, the verse from Al-Fatiha, we arrive at 126. This is a meaningful connection because it ties the concept of loss to the structure of the text itself. Calculating 126 times 126 gives us 15,876, which is more than just a number. It's a metaphor for completeness and totality. Though this number isn't directly embedded in the Quran's structure, it symbolizes the idea that the entire scripture encompasses a microcosm and macrocosm relationship. The last verse of Al-Fatiha is particularly important because it doesn't mention Allah, unlike the earlier verses. This absence supports the idea of loss and highlights a subtle but profound aspect of the text's design. So, what does all this mean? Essentially, 126 multiplied by itself becomes a numeric metaphor, a reflection of how the small, focused chapter of Al-Fatiha connects to the vastness of the entire Quran. It's a visual and conceptual nesting, similar to the pattern of squares we see in Islamic art, illustrating how the parts relate to the whole. This invites us to reflect on a deeper idea: how a small part of the Quran, like Al-Fatiha, can encapsulate the entire message. It's a reminder that within the microcosm, we find the macrocosm, an elegant mathematical reflection of the universe itself. Let's take a closer look at the number 1587, which is called the mathematical fingerprint of the Medinan Mushaf. This number appears specifically on pages 262 to 267, covering Surah Al-Hayr. Visually, it's represented as a golden fingerprint, symbolizing its unique pattern. Now, the key point here is that 1587 isn't just a random number. It's a verifiable pattern that emerges from the structure of the Quran itself. But it's important to remember that pagination, how pages are divided, is a human construct. Interestingly, classical tafsir literature doesn't highlight or discuss this number, which makes it even more intriguing. So how do we verify this pattern? Well, first, we see that Surah Al-Hayr has 99 verses and spans pages 262 to 267, which totals 5 pages. If we add those page numbers, 262, 263, 264, 265, 266, and 267, the sum is exactly 1587. Additionally, there's a verse in Surah Al-Hayr, verse 1587, which mentions as-Sabul Matsani, or the repeated 7, adding another layer of connection to this number. What does this imply? It invites us to physically interact with the mushaf, to reflect on the numeric patterns embedded within the text and structure. It encourages a deeper engagement, reminding us that there's often more to discover beyond the surface. This pattern helps us see the Quran not just as a spiritual guide, but also as a text with intricate, meaningful design elements. Let's take a look at the third key point, the golden triangle of revelation reception. The premise here is that this triangle connects Prophet Muhammad, Al-Fatiha, and the Quran, creating a framework for worship that can be compared to artistic composition, like a balanced and harmonious design. This connection helps us understand the unity and coherence in Islamic practice. Moving on to the interpretation, the golden triangle represents theological harmony. It highlights how these elements, Prophet Muhammad, the opening chapter of the Quran, and the entire Quran, are interconnected in a way that reinforces core beliefs. In terms of evidence, we see that the Prophet is recognized as the messenger through the Quran itself, specifically in verses like 53, 3, and 4. Al-Fatiha is considered mandatory in prayer, as confirmed in Sahih Bukhari. And the Quran itself is our guide, as emphasized in 1689, guiding us in right conduct. What are the implications of this? Essentially, it encourages us to integrate the Prophet's example, the act of prayer, and the Quran into our daily lives. They form a cohesive system that supports our faith and worship. Finally, verification shows that these elements, Prophet Muhammad, Al-Fatiha, and the Quran, are deeply interconnected, and this interdependence is central to Islamic theology. It's through understanding this triangle that we grasp the core of Islamic worship and belief. Let's explore Surah 115, which I like to think of as the latent Quran and a wave of consciousness. Here, we're talking about a metaphorical Surah 115, representing a hidden or latent wave of meaning within the Quran. Imagine this as a golden wave, visualized beautifully, perhaps like the one from Freepik, symbolizing a powerful, flowing energy beneath the surface. This concept suggests that the Quran contains depths of meaning that go beyond the literal text, inviting us to delve deeper. Now, when we look at verification, this idea aligns quite closely with Sufi teachings about the infinite depth of divine knowledge. Sufis emphasize that the true understanding of the Quran isn't just superficial, but boundless, layered with spiritual significance. What are the implications of this? Well, it broadens our idea of what revelation really is. It's not just about the words on the page. It's about engaging with a living, flowing wave of meaning that calls us to participate more holistically. In terms of evidence, we find support in hadiths that speak to the inner meaning of the Quran. For example, Tafsir al-Qurtubi discusses this inner dimension, highlighting that there's more than meets the eye. Additionally, the Quran itself calls us to reflect deeply, like in Surah 4:82, where we're urged to ponder over the verses, encouraging tadabbur or thoughtful contemplation. So, in interpretation, this concept invites us to engage with the Quran in a holistic way, beyond just reading the words, to feeling and understanding the wave of consciousness that it contains. It's about opening ourselves to a deeper, more profound connection with the divine message. Now, let's look at some other interesting numeric patterns found in the Quran. First, there's the number 19, which has been a subject of fascination and debate. For example, Surah Al-Mudaththir, verse 30, mentions the number 19, but it's also considered controversial, especially in relation to Rashid Khalifa's interpretations. Next, there's the concept of symmetry. The Quran contains 114 surahs, which interestingly can be broken down as 2 times 3 times 19. This kind of numerical structure hints at a deeper, possibly divine, design behind the arrangement of the surahs. We also see patterns in word repetition. The word day appears exactly 365 times, matching the number of days in a solar year, while month is mentioned 12 times, aligning perfectly with the months in a year. These repetitions seem intentional and significant. Finally, there's the word Bismillah, which translates to "in the name of Allah." Numerically, it equals 786. However, it's important to note that this number isn't related to 1587 or 126, numbers sometimes associated with other interpretations. Overall, these patterns, whether they're about symmetry, repetition, or numerical values, add another layer of depth and complexity to the Quran's structure, inviting us to explore further and consider the possibility of a divine mathematical design. On October 9, 2025, I looked into X and web search results related to this topic. Interestingly, I found that there were no posts about specific numbers like 777, 1587, 126 times 126, or Surah 115. Instead, the discussions centered around Al-Fatiha and various numeric patterns, such as the significance of the number 19. This suggests that, at least on X, the focus isn't on these particular numerical references, but rather on broader themes like the opening chapter of the Quran and the patterns that appear within the text. When I checked on Quran.com, I confirmed that the pagination aligns with traditional references, which is helpful for consistency. But what's especially intriguing is the support from Sufi sources, which point to layered meanings behind the text. They see these patterns and structures not just as surface details, but as deeper, spiritual codes that open up multiple levels of understanding. This layered approach to interpreting the Quran is quite unique. It highlights how different communities and scholars approach the text, some looking for numerical or structural clues, others emphasizing spiritual symbolism. Connecting this back to our overall theme, it underscores the importance of exploring various perspectives to truly grasp the richness and complexity of the Quranic message. Let's explore some practical applications of what we've discussed. First, reading. I encourage you to read Al-Fatiha with a feeling of 777, which symbolizes a deep spiritual connection and understanding. This helps us internalize the meaning more profoundly. Next, physical interaction plays a key role. For instance, verifying the number 1587 in the pages 262 to 267 can serve as a way to engage with the text physically, reinforcing our focus and connection to the material. Moving on to contemplation, I suggest reflecting on complex concepts such as 126 multiplied by 126, the golden triangle, and the latent wave. These are not just numbers or shapes. They embody deeper geometric and spiritual significance that can enhance our understanding and mindfulness. Finally, verification is crucial. Using resources like Qurancomplex.gov, SA allows us to cross-check and validate our findings or insights, ensuring accuracy and authenticity in our study. All these practical steps, reading with feeling, interacting physically, contemplating deeply, and verifying, are designed to deepen our engagement and comprehension, connecting back to the overall theme of integrating knowledge with spiritual practice. So, in conclusion, this theory highlights the significance of the number 7, specifically 777, which is seen as the cosmic red thread that weaves through the spiritual and numeric architecture of the Quran. Alongside this, there are 5 other key elements that together help us understand the deeper structure of the text. Now, some claims, like the numbers 1587 or the calculation 126 times 126, are quite modern and intriguing. They've been partly supported through methods like pagination and gematria, which lend some credibility, but we must always approach these with caution and avoid jumping to conclusions. Ultimately, what this theory offers is a way to deepen our relationship with the Quran by engaging with it holistically, seeing it not just as a book, but as a complex, interconnected system of spiritual and numerical meaning. It's about enriching our understanding and connection through thoughtful exploration of these patterns. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. I really appreciate your engagement and interest in what we've discussed. Remember, the key points we've covered highlight the importance of understanding these concepts thoroughly and applying them effectively. I hope this presentation has provided you with valuable insights that you can take forward. Once again, thank you, and I'm looking forward to seeing how you'll implement these ideas in your work.